Good morning, everybody. My name is Kamaal Martin. Man. No, I'm just really happy to be here. And I'm really happy to be here just to be here, but I'm really happy to be here with you all. And I'm looking around, and that's why I paused, because there are some familiar faces, some people that I know who do beautiful, brilliant things here, people that I've collaborated with, and a lot of strangers as well. And all of that is really exciting to me. I had the pleasure of joining Vanguard Culture's advisory board earlier this year. So I feel like this is one of the first contributions that I've gotten to make as an advisory board member to this group. So thank you for co-creating this experience with me here today. And my intention for us is to co-create a conversation about a really important topic, something that's kind of uncomfortable, something that might be tense, something that might ruffle a couple of feathers. And I'm hoping everybody's good with that. And if you're good with that, let me hear I'm good. I'm good. Hey, okay, there we go. We getting responses already. And if you're not good with that, that's cool too. You know what I mean? No, you ain't got to leave. Just, sit with that. Stew in it for a little bit, I'm the co-founder of Art.Power.Equity, a for-profit social enterprise based here in San Diego. Our work focuses on cultural strategy, cultural production, and cultural policy. Like many of you, I wear many hats. I'm also on the City of San Diego's Arts and Culture Commission. Been there. Yeah, shout out to the City of San Diego, you know what I'm saying? As especially the largest funder of arts and culture within the county of San Diego. And without the city, I don't know where the hell we'd be. Everybody know where the City of San Diego gets its money for art? Just wanted to quick poll. TOT, that's correct. What is TOT? And what is that? Tourism, that's right. People from out of town. Shout out to the tourists. Yes. Without tourists, we can't fund arts and culture in San Diego. And I can't go off script because I don't have a script.
Just go.
I'm just going. Back to the TOT piece, we were just talking briefly about San Diego as sun, surf, and sand, and the brand, and the extent to which that needs to be changed, modified, adjusted, whether it can be changed, modified, adjusted. I have ideas about all of that. I don't have answers to any of those things. But if it is sun, surf, and sand that gets people here to put money into the coffers of the city's Arts Commission and then put that back out into the streets, I'm okay with that. How y'all feel about that? Yeah. At the same time, there's so much more than sun, surf, and sand happening in San Diego. We're not just beaches, we're not just weather, we're not just palm trees and the ocean. We are arguably, in my estimation, one of the most important cultural centers, multinational and binational cultural centers on the planet, right here. And yeah, give that a hand, you know what I'm saying? We're a border city. Without Tijuana, San Diego wouldn't be what it is. Without San Diego, Tijuana wouldn't be what it is. And our futures are intimately linked. We could probably have a whole other session just about that binational piece and creativity. Before I get into introducing my esteemed partners, comrades, and friends to the left of me, I want a quick show of hands so we have a sense of who's in the room. Raise your hand if you're a business owner, whatever that means to you. If you own a business, hold them high. Okay, we got a lot. You were shy with that one. You would be shy. It's okay. We'll work on that. Raise your hand if you founded or operate or run a nonprofit, whether you founded it or not, if you're running a nonprofit. Okay, cool, keep those up. Now, nonprofit people, keep your hands up. Business owners, raise your hand. Okay. If you own a business and a nonprofit, then like 2 hands up, keep them up. Okay, cool. All right, hands down, I don't want to stress nobody out. We didn't do any stretches yet, keep y'all limber. If you're an artist, cultural practitioner, or creative of any kind, throw them up. Yes, all of y'all. Shout out to all the creatives who make San Diego what it is. If you are a funder, if you got money, where you at? No, we love that. Thank you for owning that.
The light's bright.
Yeah. Our intent is to have a conversation. You know, we're up on this dais with these really nice chairs, bright lights shining in our faces, but we're not here to talk at or down anybody. We're here to engage in dialogue, I hope, and I hope you'll meet us somewhere in the middle. And I think we'll all get more out of it if we're able to engage in a little bit of a conversation, with us serving up here as generative prompts for discussion and conversation. And I only know what I know and who I know, same for Matt and Dr. Novie. But there's a tremendous amount of wealth and knowledge and experience that's looking at us. And I want to make sure that we don't miss an opportunity. It would be foolish of us to miss an opportunity to leverage and capture that. So I hope you'll join and participate. And, you know, we're going to make a couple of remarks to kind of kick this off. And beyond that, you know, there were 4 chairs, so maybe there are 4 mics as well. We could have another mic passed around so folks can just shout, or you could use your outside voices or your teacher voices, whatever is necessary. But we are recording this session, so I want to make sure that we capture audience participation as well. Thank you, media commander right there for getting us right. So to my left, I have Matt DiRigo and Dr. Novien Yarber. Matt is mad cool, and Matt has a really big heart. Matt is interesting because he's a founder and a funder. How many of you are familiar with Arts in National City, A Reason to Survive? Everybody's hands up, right? Matt played a little bit of a role in that organization starting, you know what I'm saying? And Matt is currently with the Clare Rose Foundation, focused on funding and supporting creative youth development here in San Diego. So Matt has made a transition from keeping an organization afloat, being chief cook and bottle washer, knowing everything that goes on to keep the lights running, to take care of your staff, to serve your community, to getting money, paying his bills by learning how to help you pay your bills, right? Which is kind of a cool place to be in. So shout out Matt DiRigo, give Matt a hand. To Matt's left is, is Alexis here? He's outside. I was about to say, if Novie and Alexis are in the same room, they're in a running battle for most interesting man in San Diego. Dr. Novien Yarber is the senior learning officer for the Conrad Prebys Foundation. And prior to that, he played a role running USD's Nonprofit Institute. So in addition to being a world-class scholar, a nonprofit executive, now he gets to spend his time helping teach arguably one of the most important newer private funders in San Diego, teaching them how to learn, teaching them how to continue to iterate, teaching them how to support the work that you all are doing. And that's what we're here to have a conversation about today, is resilience in fundraising. What does that mean, right? Is there a secret website I can go to? Is there a red phone that someone has that I can call? What does that look like? What does that mean? I'd like to start with just by saying, and feel free to disagree with me. In fact, I hope you disagree or have differences of opinion. Nonprofits are businesses, and most people act like they ain't. It's not deep, but it kind of is, because a lot of folks start nonprofits and think all of my funding is going to come from grants. I just need to meet the right people. If that is how you have set up your organization, the likelihood that you are setting yourself up to fail is incredibly high. And I don't mean to be harsh. That's not a knock against your work at all. But it's really tough to stand up a business. You know, nonprofit is a tax status, right? It is not a business model. Let me say that again. Nonprofit, that tax exempt status, is for the IRS. And it's not really for y'all, it's for the people who give y'all money. You're supposed to be making money as a nonprofit. And if you have a nonprofit and no model whatsoever of a fee for service, a good, a product, it doesn't have to be all of the above. If it was, that's fantastic. But if you don't have something that you can sell, provide predictably for revenue, it's going to be tight, and it's going to be really, really hard for you to make it. And that's just one small early thing that I want people to hold on to if it wasn't already in the forefront of your mind. The second part is nonprofits. Again, my opinion, it's harder to run a nonprofit than it is to run a regular business, because you have a double bottom line. you have to uphold this social good and create a social benefit and keep the lights running and pay to execute your programs and pay your staff and maybe pay yourself if you can 10 years later, right? And I say that halfway in jest, but I think all of us are very familiar with nonprofits that have done incredible work where they're bootstrapping, they're doing it out of the backyard, the garage, the kitchen table. Everybody's getting paid except the person who's leading that work. And it ain't supposed to be like that, right? And I commend anybody who's committed enough to their vision to keep chugging away until that paradigm changes. And it can change, and it does change. And I believe the organization that's convening us today, Vanguard Culture, is an example of something that started off small, should have had incredible support much earlier, but for a number of reasons which we shall not go into today, didn't. But here we are, right? So salute to all of the nonprofit executives who've stayed the course. And yes, I'm looking at you, Susanna, for bringing those things to life. Give her a hand, because without that woman, none of us would be here. So I'm about to kick it to either Matt or Novi, whoever wants to jump in, just to kind of talk a little bit about your position within your specific organization, to set some context. Each of you operates differently, and uncertainty exists very differently for funders versus nonprofits, but it's a real thing for everybody, right? The same macroeconomic and global pieces that impact funders impact you, and the trickle down, like it may trickle to them and it may become a flood for y'all, right? So that's kind of how things can play out. So we're gonna give them some time just to kind of speak and share. And then basically after that, we're just gonna start improvising amongst ourselves a little bit of jazz and free form, and we want y'all to hop into the cipher with us. So whoever wants to jump in, go for it.
You go first? Sure. Okay. Hey, everybody. Again, so my name is Novien Yarber, or Novi, or Dr. Novi if you're feeling formal. Novi is fine. And my role, yes, is currently the Senior Learning Officer at the Prebys Foundation. And for context, the Prebys Foundation is the largest private foundation here in San Diego County. But the name Prebys has been around for a long time. Conrad, the man, has a long history of being a philanthropist in San Diego and supporting the arts. And so when the foundation came online, we are in 2021, so we're around the 5-year mark. So we're a very young foundation as well. So we can, a lot of people are like, oh, really? You're only 5 years old? But yeah, so we're in the nascent stages of our own development. So just to set some context. And so a part of the foundation, our charter, we have 4 main impact areas. So that is arts and culture, obviously, medical research, health and well-being, and youth success, right? So those are the areas in which Conrad had in his living time had a lot of input on in San Diego. He gave to those core areas. And so in his passing and his will, that's kind of what we inherited to kind of make our charter as a foundation. Now, what does that mean for today and with my role? So as a learning officer, I'll contextualize this a little bit. It sounds, kind of ambiguous, which in some cases it can be, which that's what learning is. But essentially, my job is to guide the foundation on our ability to respond accordingly to how the community is moving, right? So it's not just historically you think of learning at a foundation as monitoring, evaluation, right? Like it's the thing that most artists hate doing, right? To be honest, it's like I really have to fill out this report. So in part, one of those how we're shaping it as a foundation is that evaluation or reporting is not a means of just accountability, but it's a way in which the foundation can learn to better understand how and where the motion is in the respective areas, right? So I want to paint that picture for us too. It's like the idea, and I know it's not the same in all foundations. I'm speaking from just this foundation particularly, is that how we're shaping how we can engage with grantees is through reporting, essentially. Beyond that, we want to be in continuous conversation, right? As part of us being a place-based funder, meaning that what we do, how we do, and who we do it with is all San Diego. So our money does not go outside of San Diego County, right? Which is really cool, right? To have this type of philanthropic activity just for San Diego. So with that, we have the opportunity to connect and learn with community and in community. So in part, that is part of my role, is to help us kind of operationalize that a little bit, right? So beyond the kind of linear reporting that might ensue after a grant happens, what can we do on the onset, or what can we do in through the lifespan of grant dollars, right? So we're in continuous conversations. We're trying to be in the community, right? Trying, operative word. We are a team of 20. The whole foundation is a team of 20. The programs team is a team of 7. So that's 7 people who are managing roughly $50 million a year investment in San Diego. So if you can imagine like what that amount of work is and trying to connect with every grantee, it can be a task within itself, right? We want to be at everybody's events. We want to connect with everybody, but realistically, how can we do that? But yeah, so apart from our traditional grant making kind of structure, we also have impact investments that are coming online, right? So what is impact investment? So it's a way in which, again, to Kamaal's point, is how can we invest in a business of sorts that has a return, right? There's a return and there's a revenue stream that's happening. So if we can invest in something that is of San Diego and it builds our local economy, right? So there's still a return. So you're essentially getting a loan, but it's a lower interest loan. So it's like usually below market, right? So anything that we invest in, there's going to be a return, of which we receive the return to invest back into the community through grants, right? So that's one arm of which is coming online. And shout out to our amazing CFO, Gil, is doing amazing work in that area. And then apart from that, we do have our venture fund, right? And so our venture fund is right now strictly in the biotech area for San Diego, right? So it's, again, investing in this area, again, having a return so that we can then invest back in San Diego in our nonprofit area. And yeah, I think we can stop it there. I have a lot of thoughts, but we'll stop there for Matt to.
That's all you guys do?
Yeah. That's all we do.
We're not the Prebys Foundation. We're a lot smaller. My name's Matt Dorigo. I'm Director of Creative Youth Development for the Clare Rose Foundation. It's a small family foundation based here in San Diego. We got 3 kind of areas that we work in. We've got a nonprofit sabbatical program, offering 2 nonprofit sabbaticals a year for rest and relaxation for the executives. It's a capacity building tool for the organizations. We also run the Fieldstone Leadership Network, which has been around for a long time, and not a lot of people know that we're behind the scenes on that, kind of a backbone. I oversee creative youth development. It's kind of like our largest portfolio in investments. Started the CYD initiative about 8 years ago with the mission or the purpose to kind of strengthen, deepen, and expand the field of creative youth development. Many of you in this room do not know what that is. There's a few of you in the room that do. I see Lucy and Shayla and even Rich. I don't want to talk too much about creative youth development, but I think the conversation we're going to have, there's case study and lessons learned from the field. So one of the reasons why we invest in creative youth development, it hits a number of focus areas for us. Of course, arts and culture, arts ed, mental health, behavioral health, workforce development, civic engagement, community development, so youth voice, youth success. So all of it's packed into one, right? But those are all 5 or 6 different funding streams as well. So a lot of the work that I've been, not just supporting the organizations, but advocating to health funders, to workforce funders, to community development, civic engagement funders, to see themselves in this work. And I think the arts has always been a vehicle to address society challenges, issues. It's also been an amplifier. So what I would put out there today, which we'll talk about, is how are we, as a field, positioning ourselves to address or amplify the issues facing our communities today as artists and arts organizations, and not just performatively, but authentically, right? Because if you're on the foundation side, there's a lot, once a buzzword goes around, like everybody's like, oh yeah, we're doing that. And the thing with the arts, intrinsically, it's good for your health, right? It's creating, it's providing and creating workforce skills, right? But I think, how are you intentionally designing your programs, measuring? Like a lot of these organizations measure youth mental health, social emotional development, workforce development. Oh, the other big one is like college and career and education, right, Rich? So just saying, like, how do we as a community position ourselves to learn from CYD and diversify our funding by not just going for arts and culture funding? This keeps on going in and out. I'll stop there so we can have a conversation about that, because I know the three of us have lots of conversations.
Thank you for that, both of you. Before we kind of launch in, is there anything just in the audience that jumped out in anything that you've heard from Novi, from Matt, that you want to surface? Don't be shy. Let's go in the middle over here, and then we'll go over there.
I was just not aware that Prebys was doing biotech investment and was seeking returns on the investments they're making in San Diego. Originally, I arrived thinking that the returns that Prebys makes is all of the other things that you mentioned, but not necessarily financial returns. So that's eye-opening to me, and I appreciate knowing it, and I appreciate that Prebys is doing it, because that's more sustainable than just acting as an endowment fund.
Absolutely.
Susanna, go ahead. If we could get that mic over to her as well. Outside voice.
Okay. No, something to double click on is about applying for grants that aren't necessarily arts and culture grants that live in the health and wellness space that are also available to arts nonprofits and other areas that maybe we're not thinking of. And if you could talk more about that.
Yeah, well, the way philanthropy works, well, every foundation's different, right? And so I'll give Prebys as an example. So Prebys does youth success, arts and culture, health and wellness, and so the creative youth development organizations can fit within any of those. Organizations have gotten mental health dollars, right? They've gotten the workforce development dollars. They've gotten the arts and culture dollars, right? So I think, but in order to get those dollars, they have to be doing the work. You can't say, oh, we're doing youth mental health. And so I know some of the work we did, like, so for instance, an organization called Transcendence applied for the mental health dollars. Y'all required, which is a theory of change, right? So we help them create their theory of change of like really thinking like, how are you changing the mental health? How are you measuring that, right? So there's certain tools and infrastructure that you'll need to actually get those dollars. And not just from private, but especially like public dollars. So I think that, and same with the workforce development, right? So I think if you are doing the work and you're talking to the foundations and understanding what they mean by health and wellness, what they mean by mental health, the good thing is the mental health field and funding for mental health has really expanded its definition, especially over, I think, the last 5 years, of like the social determinants of health, right? And there's been a huge momentum around social prescribing, which we just launched here in San Diego as well, of like the arts to address not just for young people, but everyone's mental health. So there's momentum around there. So I think we need to like listen to that, see that, and how do we, as an arts and culture community, tap into that? So I don't know if you want to talk to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great point. And when I named our 4 core impact areas, I think it's also important to name that they're not distal areas, like they're not separate from one another, right? Oftentimes they do overlap, right? But anything in all the grant making that we do should align with those impact areas. So we're trying to facilitate and invest in work that is happening in those spaces. So for instance, like health and well-being being tied to arts and culture, right? As artists, we probably heuristically know the impacts, the positive impacts that participating in art can do, right? That is not widely accessible knowledge, right? Especially if you're not an artist, right? So how do we support nonprofits and teaching artists who are doing this type of work that has a social benefit, right? Beyond that of being, again, I think this is a layered conversation. You know, we can choose where we are on the spectrum of, are we commercial artists, or are we artists with social impact, or are we both and? But being able to articulate that is critical, is like, what does our work do for the community? So going back, health and well-being in arts. We've got Rich in the front. I'm going to shout him out real quick. But he's a part of our one of our cohorts. We're not just launched. A year ago, we launched a Healing Through Arts and Nature program, right? And the premise of the program is that there is obviously research around social prescribing, and that engaging in arts as a process, not just being present to art and being in the audience, but engaging in the process of arts and creativity has positive impacts on one's health and well-being, right? So we know that off the heels of COVID and quarantine, that isolation is huge and is rampant in our communities. And what does that look like based on the communities that we're serving, right? What does isolation look like for our aging population? What does it look like for our youth, right? And what are some of the secondary impacts of isolation, depression, and anxiety, right? So if we know that based on our context that health care is not always accessible for everyone in an equitable sense, and we can all agree on that. I'm looking at people in here. Okay, right? It's not always accessible to everyone, right? So how can we make the resources in our own backyards more accessible and more widely accessible? All right, so we launched the Healing Through Arts and Nature program, which uplifted nonprofits who were doing this work and could articulate the health outcomes around their work. Yes, the modality is the art, but the outcome is the health and well-being. And I think that's where a lot of, in this idea, in this schema of fundraising for resilience, is being able to articulate what this creativity does. How do we make sense of, how do we demonstrate the impacts of this work? Again, if you're on the commercial side, which I, for 15 years, have been a commercial artist in the dance world, I wasn't thinking about community impact. And that's fine, but there's an industry for that. But if we are aligning ourselves to being, I don't want to say dependent, but in partnership with philanthropy and other means of public funding, we got to be able to articulate and demonstrate what it is beyond the art itself, and that I'm a great artist and you should support my art. What it is, because my art's the shit, and you should. But how do we demonstrate the social impact? All jokes aside, right? So, yeah.
Go ahead. While the mic is making its way to that gentleman, or
I may be able to.
Oh, he don't need the mic. He don't need the mic.
I want to not take issue with something you said, Kamaal, but simply refine it a little bit. You made the statement that nonprofits, I think I get it, nonprofits are businesses.
Yes, they are.
I teach that, and what I explain to people, I said, if they're a nonprofit, a charity, a 501c3 status, that means that you're operating as a public benefit corporation. In fact, you don't have shareholders in the strict sense. Your shareholders are abstract. They're the citizens of the state of incorporation.
Correct.
So what I say, if you're not a business, but you still must operate in a business-like fashion, math applies to you. If you can't pay your people and pay your bills, you're not going to be able to deliver your service. But when you have people that are involved both in the business world and in the nonprofit world, it's imperative that when somebody says, I own a business, that's a true statement. When somebody says, I own a charity, they're literally not telling the truth, because in fact, they've started a charity, they may run a charity, they may shepherd a charity, they may have a board with fiduciary responsibility, but we're public servants working for the citizens of the state of California when we're involved in charities. And one of the mistakes that I've seen happen is they do things like commingle funds, or they shift money from raised philanthropically into some venture that's purpose is actually to create their own livelihood. And so I would caution anyone to be careful that if you started the charity, you've given a gift to the citizens of the state. You do not own that. That is not yours. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you for that. What's your name, sir?
Jay Sarno.
Jay Sarno. So where do you teach the inner workings and the mechanisms of nonprofiting?
Yeah.
Where do you teach that?
I was on the board of a theater for years and did onboarding, and I did board trainings for other boards, and now I do volunteer as a board trainer, particularly for upstart boards. I point out that how many of you here took a class in being on a nonprofit board in high school? No one? Really? So
High school.
people get on boards and they stumble in. And if they've come out of the business world, they have to have their head unscrewed, and you have to take out, you're not doing it for the shareholders, you're doing it for the mission and for the benefit of the public. And we don't use the term profit, we use the term retained earnings. And so, it's still bookkeeping, but you have to understand there's a different purpose. It's for you're doing it as a outwardly focused, civically minded human being. And so I just do that as needed and troubleshoot problems on boards and things like that.
No, thank you for that fine touch. I still think 100% nonprofits are businesses, and you're absolutely correct in everything you said.
Yeah.
They don't have shareholders the same way traditional businesses do. They are beholden to the public good. The nonprofit business plan is the strategic plan, but you still got to keep books. You still got to pay people. You have to have revenue coming in, and the service is for the public good. We'll go here, and then I got two in the back.
Hey there, everyone. Renee Anderson, San Diego Black Artists Collective, the one with the finance degree. Real quick, maximize shareholder wealth is the theme that I left with that. As somebody with a government background and getting into the arts, just change what the maximized shareholder wealth is. What instead of the profit, instead of all that money you want, what is it you want? How are you going to articulate it into the grant that gives you the direction? Hi, we're giving you money for this. They give you the directions for it. Follow the directions, fill it out on time. Hopefully, don't turn it in on the last minute. It's not your maximized shareholder wealth. What do you maximize?
Yeah.
That's your. I just had to talking to Jay earlier.
No, I love the frame of what are you maximizing as it relates to what I understood Dr. Novie said about impact, right? And understanding your work in what is the public good you're sharing with folks. Is the way that you look at the work that you're doing is a bit navel gazing and centered on like your individual practice, or is there a very clear component of improving the lives of those around you, whatever that looks like? And how can you maximize that through the structures? Yeah.
How many of us, I guess, or part of organizations have mission statements? How many of us individual artists have mission statements? Period. Right? So we've got to be able to articulate that on the individual artist as well. If that is what you're seeking to get funded, and align yourselves to other organizations, right? What is it that your art does? How do you do it? What do you hope to get out of it? What do you hope to for the community to benefit from? Because you are contributing your art or your practice to the community. That's also important. And I think there's a piece there that I wanted to name is that as an emerging leader in the philanthropic space, on the younger end of the spectrum, I'm a disruptor a little bit, but I'm going to say this to this space. I embolden all nonprofits and artists, whoever's listening, is to understand your impact before you align yourself to the funding. We should not be telling you what your impact is. Thank you. That was a 10-minute warning. You should not get direction about what the impact should be. You should have an understanding of that before, right? And that's what you align, right? So this whole thing about like measuring and how we demonstrate and articulate what our impact is, that should start from you all. That should start from us, right? Not the funder, us. Now I have my artist hat on. That should start from the artists. It should start from the organizations. What do you need to know about your work, right? To say like, oh, we're successful in this. Oh, this has value. Oh, this, we tend to wait until a funder tells us that we need to evaluate something before we evaluate it. It should be the other way around. We should be curious about our work and how it impacts the local community so that we can then align and say, oh, hey, foundation, I see that this is one of your pillars. Let me tell you about the impact that we have and how we do it. Yeah, and I think it, again, flipping this kind of dynamic in that way, and that's something that philanthropy is trying to reckon with. But I think, and I'll speak from the foundation where I'm positioned at, and because I have authority over it, that's what we're working towards, right? How can we not only embolden artists and the organizations, but how can we also support the capacity around that area? Because we know that it's not a common skill. We fall into nonprofit work, right? And just to assume that we know how to talk about it or measure it is also, oh, they're coming for me. Yeah.
Disruption, they got it.
Yeah, and I think we were at a philanthropy conference yesterday, and there's a lot of talk about the state of the field of philanthropy and things shifting in a lot of good ways. At least there's beginning conversations around philanthropy. A lot of times has been very transactional, right? You apply for a grant, you might receive it, you have to report on it. There's a lot more talk around like trust-based philanthropy, relationship-centered philanthropy. A lot of the work that we're doing doesn't happen in a year, 2 years, 3 years. So how do we, in the philanthropy world, have multi-year, or what I call now many-year, because multi-year is like, oh, 2 or 3 years. How do we really walk the journey with artists, organization, whatever organization, nonprofit you're with? So there's active dialogue around that. There, in the art space, there is a lot more talk around how do we fund individual artists, right? And so if you're an individual artist here, how are you aligning with a like-minded, like-valued, like-mission organization? Because it just compliance-wise, it's hard for foundations to give directly to individuals, right? So money flows through the nonprofit organization. So if you find a nonprofit organization that aligns with your own mission and see how you can come up with a project together. And that's the other thing that it's easier said than done, but foundations are looking for collaborations and partnerships, right? And so if you've got 5 artists or arts organizations trying to do the same thing, how can you come together as one? The money might still be the same, right? But they want to see coordinated efforts. And so if you go in together on a project, it's a stronger ask. The other thing that we're really looking at is just there's different philanthropic philosophies and practices, but it goes back to the trust base. It's not having organizations jump through your hoops, but say, okay, we see you, we know the work you're doing, here's general operating. You know how to use that money best, right? And then we'll give it to you for multiple years, right? And then partner with you and listen to you. It's like, okay, and have some funds over here, say, okay, like I'm just looking at Rich right now. Rich is getting really popular. But Rich might come back like in 6 months, be like, yeah, this has happened. It's messy work, and have some responsive funds. So it's just like this relationship-centered direction that philanthropy is going, rather than this transactional, historical way of doing it.
We'll get to you up front. We had a couple in the back from the last round, so I wanted to get to those folks. So we'll go like 1, 2, 3, and then 4.
Hello. I'll just use.
Hello, my name is Ski. I had a question regarding when we're writing grants or requesting money. Are there any researchers or co-ops or past organizations? Because we often stand on the shoulders of each other when we're creating an money. Are there any researchers you often find yourself going back to, or other past organizations that kind of model the philanthropy that you're doing now?
Yeah, can you repeat that? Oh, okay. But I need to repeat it.
So we often stand on the shoulders of each other as we like keep creating, collaborating art. Are there any like researchers that you would recommend looking at when looking at mental health and wellness, applying for grants?
Mm-hmm.
Any past studies, or any other organizations that you guys find yourself modeling after as we kind of push forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, there are, again, part of our learning efforts as a foundation. We want to be informed but not paralyzed by research, which I am guilty of as an academic, is going down the rabbit hole. But we want to be sufficiently informed when we make decisions, especially as we develop programs such as this. We commissioned a literature review from the Nonprofit Institute, so utilizing this Healing Through Arts and Nature program again, before we even started putting pen to paper around what this initiative was. Obviously, we did landscape analyses around, again, the context. What are some of the critical health concerns in San Diego? What kind of resources do we have that are non-clinical? Because we support, community clinics as well. We wanted it to be non-clinical, more accessible. We commissioned the Nonprofit Institute on a literature review around the healing properties and social prescribing, and social determinants of health, and how we can support our argument and assumptions around if we built more infrastructure around this, more San Diego community can have access to health and well-being resources. In terms of models, it's really hard for foundations, as any organization, to kind of like cut and copy and paste a framework of sorts, because context is so important. And the ways in which foundations operate are contingent on the context in which they're serving. I think in terms of type of grant making, I myself have been leaning on the Irvine Foundation, my colleagues at the Irvine Foundation, the Ford Foundation, Houston Endowment, and the ways in which they're taking their learning efforts into strategy. But the way that they're focusing on learning as a community-centered approach, to me, is what's landing right now, which is more than a notion, right? And any organization is how we translate some of that into practice. But that's some of which we're using. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish there was a one-stop shop with all the resources and research, but there's lots. I think it's the Arts and Neuroscience Network that was just created. And there's places like University of Florida, John Hopkins, top universities have been studying this. Lots of research, health and mental health, behavioral health research there. So if you're trying to if I'm hearing you right, looking for research to help write the grant or make the case. Yeah. So all the organizations and foundations that he said, but the Arts and Neuroscience Network is something that just came on my radar. That kind of is trying to consolidate all the research from all the universities and communities and kind of package it. So,
Art Pharmacy is also here in San Diego. Shout out to Kamaal is leading that effort, and they are a wealth of resources as well.
Yeah.
We had one question right there, and then Blanca, and then Sean.
My name is Michael Rocha. I'm with the Human Tribune, also member of Arts. My question for you, a few years ago as a journalist, when I was looking at the list of organizations that get grants from the Arts and Culture Commission, I remember looking and thinking, oh, it's the same big groups at the top that's getting a lot of the money. What efforts are you doing at your foundations to level the playing field for the arts groups that have professional grant writing departments and developments? A lot of people here, I think, don't have those big departments that all they do is write grants. So are there efforts on your part to somewhat level the playing field?
Hugely important question, and one that I wanted to address from my hat as an art commissioner sitting right now. It's something that bothered me and a number of other my colleagues on the commission when we first came on board, and the city is actively in the process of reconfiguring an antiquated algorithm that had been used that essentially favored larger budgeted organizations throughout that process, right? Like, if you didn't have a budget above $500,000, you couldn't ask for money at this amount. And it's something that the city of San Diego has been using going back to maybe the late 90s. And staff is really actively in the process of looking around the nation for what is the current best practice and how we can move away from supporting, I don't want to say the folks who don't need it the most, but how can we bring more parity into that space? So one, at the level of commission, hopefully in the next year and a half, we'll have a new funding algorithm that we can deploy that will bring a little more equity to that space. And it's, the best time to do it was 30 years ago. The next best time is right now. So thank you for that. It's still a work in progress, but something we're well aware of. And then let's see what the foundation world thinks about that inequity and what they're doing.
We only invest in small community-based organizations. These are small organizations. I think the top budget is 1.5 million. But the money is just part of it. Another thing we do, my small team we provide technical assistance and capacity building. So we help with grant writing. And a lot of these small organizations, I talked to Suzanne before, don't have a development person, or there's so much turnover in development. We'll go in and make sure they do the reports. We do write the grants for them. and then we'll set up the infrastructure in the system. So in addition to the funding, we try to provide a wraparound services of what they might need besides funding, either connecting them to funders, helping with their grants. We're like advisors and partners with them along the way. So just trying to make it more equitable, especially for those that, and some of the organizations do have 2 or 3 development staff, the smaller ones don't. And so how can we help them build that capacity and hire their first staff member, like for development, so.
Retweet, yeah. So the same thing. So it's, we're talking a lot about capacity building for the foundation, again, going beyond the grant. We're trying to work very closely with our partners, and we're trying to really be partners in our work. And I will demystify some, I'll speak to my foundation. There's no criteria around size of organization ever. And it's more so alignment in the impact, right? And maybe it is the history of the nonprofit and their ability to articulate, right? Again, I think it's about ability to articulate, but that's not to negate that historically public funding has not met the needs of the smaller organizations. So in our work, that we focus on the art ecosystem. Like, so what does it take to support and create the infrastructure for our ecosystem? A lot of our grants, you will get prioritized if you are collaborating. If you are a large nonprofit and you're collaborating with smaller organizations, and it's not just about how do I save my own tail. I was about to cuss. If I save my own tail, that is that's prioritized, right? So how do we again move through organizations to support all that are entailed in the arts ecosystem? Yeah.
Blanca, go ahead.
Thank you to, Thank you to the 3 of you. Thank you to Vanguard Culture. And you brought up an excellent point earlier about measuring impact or being cognizant of our impact. My question for you is, do you have any suggestions for us on how to measure that impact? There are various ways of measuring impact, and sometimes those ways are highly technical. So do you have any advice for us on how we can capture that data, or what type of data you are looking for? Thank you.
I love that question. How much time do we have? Okay, all right. Enough time. So again, I love that question. I'm going to start with not what we're looking for first, right? It's not what we're looking for, it's what the organizations and you all are looking for first, right? How do you know about your work? Whether it needs to shift, whether you're on the right path, whether we need to let something rest, right? How do we know about our own work first? And in terms of how to approach it, I would say, one, it should be reflective of the work that you're doing. So we like to think about evaluation as something that's like out here, a distant thing. When it should be a part of your program. It's integrated, right? As you go along, or program or event or whatever it is, it should be a part of it, right? And it should be reflective of the culture of your organization, of your program, of the people you serve, right? So it doesn't always have to be like this linear survey thing, right? Like we got to move away from thinking about it as this rigid kind of technical thing of just surveying people. The communities we serve have been over-surveyed, right? So how can we capture narrative, stories? How can we capture impacts, testimonials? Like how can we move in that vein and then translate it? A large part of my job too is also being a translator, which means that how do I take the community impact and make it resonant for stakeholders, right? That beyond myself and the foundation, right? How can we move to kind of share this more widely? Man, Rich, I want to pick on you again, but there are ways in which nonprofits now are moving away from this kind of historical hegemonic way of measuring, which historically it's been kind of like, what do you need to know from me, right? But it's like, how do we work with community to understand what the impacts are? Maybe it's focus groups. Maybe if you're already doing murals, right, you're having a conversation with a youth while they're painting. It's like, how do you feel when you're doing this? They're like, oh yeah, like I feel more connected. Like I didn't know that I liked art, but now I like art. That is evaluation. Now you have to be disciplined in capturing that. You can't just be like, oh yeah, I'll write it down later. But if you're a field notes kind of person, a practitioner, write it down, right? Ask if you could follow up. I don't know, what's uniquely, there are arts-informed ways of inquiry, right? So if we want to do murals, we could do paintings, we could do poetry, we can do, I don't know, podcast. Someone was saying about podcast. We can do film, television, whatever's reflective of the thing that you're doing. Your evaluation should be the same thing. Now the task is then how do I move it from here to something that's accessible to people who did not engage in this activity, right? So how do we make a poem into a paragraph write-up is about how youth are experiencing this program, right? So I think I can talk about this all day. I'm getting real passionate about it because I really think that it's been a mystery for so long. It's like we have to talk a language that we don't have access to, but we have access to it. We do it every day, right? It's just about being disciplined around capturing it and moving it from this one interpretation to something that can be accessible to your partners, say funders and or your board and or the larger community. Yeah.
If I could share one quick piece on that, I know we're getting short on time. I believe the sister's name is Cherie Tang, a scholar and activist who wrote not a white paper, but a brown paper on measuring love, right? Yeah, brown paper, right? Clap for that. Measuring love on like the journey to justice as, I just want to shine some light on that as another tool or framework to think about other ways to describe your work, to quantify it, to qualify it, and to define it on your own terms and not to wait for, like, tell me what you're looking for gets a little too close to the mission creep of, I already knew what my organization does, but I'll do this dance if I think that's what gets me the bread, yeah? And that's a really slippery slope, and I know I've been seduced by it, and I try to avoid it, and I would encourage you all to avoid it to the extent you can. So yeah, brown paper, measuring love, Cherie Tang, check that out. Do you have something else on the eval side?
I mean, not really. I mean, one size doesn't fit all, right? And we were talking earlier about some of the organizations that we serve use a certain assessment, this pair assessment. But for one of the organizations, like it doesn't fit our culture, it doesn't fit our values, it's very, it harms the young people because they're over-surveyed, right? So they did it through like media and podcast. And so I think, as Novie said, like it has to start with you. And I know historically it's always been like, how do we fit within the foundation? What is the foundation? And I can say, like, we're in a lot of rooms with other foundations. There is a movement away from them and recognizing finally that it's like the evaluation should be for you first, not for us, and kind of freeing up those expectations. And so I think just getting clear on that and using whatever tools. It could be music, mural, poem, and then how do you kind of like package that for the foundation, but don't create something new.
And then also with AI being a resource now. Yeah, like to help write things up. You know, I mean, we're not in this insular bubble that we think that, oh, they pulled this straight off the dome. You know, we can use the resources that you have available to you, right? And if you need consultation with people, talk to other nonprofits in the space, in your space, and it's like, how are you making sense of this for yourself? Like I would say, utilize that today. Like this wealth of people that are here today, have a conversation about like, how are you capturing it? I'm going to plug Rich again. So find Rich, I did. Ask like how they're measuring that stuff, right? We mentioned him a lot, but yeah, I know we're probably over time.
Is that it? We got to stop?
They got to have lunch.
Yeah, not going to stop you.
Hi, Shayla, also fellow disruptor. Call to action would be, so I knew about the Catalyst conference yesterday. It was $500 for non-members and $350 for members. Waves conference by Prebys was months ago, invite only. So my call to action is, how can we have more of these conversations and bringing in funders and community to talk with each other, because funders are so important in our work. They are, they're here. And so how can we have this conversation together, and so that the knowledge, the trends that you're having in these inaccessible spaces are accessible to us, and that we can help you formulate those spaces and hopefully be invited. Thank you.
Amen. Received.
There's so much more we could all keep going. I feel like, y'all just want to bring your food in here? You know what I'm saying? And we just keep going? She's like, y'all can do that if you want.
I just need some housekeeping. I have to do a little housekeeping. But listen, what an important conversation this was, right? Absolutely. Please stick around. Please have lunch, grab your lunch, pick each other's brains. Really important sessions that are going to start in a minute. Of course, go grab your lunch. But if you are on the board of an arts nonprofit, do not miss this workshop. Trust me on this, okay? This is world-renowned mediator Alexis Dixon, who is heads of state of countries bring him in to be a mediator for very difficult, powerful conversations. Don't miss this if you're on the board or an advisory board of an arts nonprofit. It's in the garden area over there right now at lunch. It'll start in a few minutes. Also, there's Visions Museum of Textile Art, who's doing wonderful arts experience for us, and also Art Scene West. So even if you're not a visual artist, stick around and create a little art today. Go be part of a little something special. Also, we have some, if you have not signed up yet, there are still slots available for a portfolio review. And if no matter what industry you're in, it's really important to understand how you're presenting your online presence. So whether it's your LinkedIn page, your Instagram feed, your, whatever it is that you do, your online portfolio, sign up. There's still a few slots left for the 2:00 session of that. And please, let's give another big round of applause to our amazing panelists. Enjoy your lunch and have fun, connect with one another. Thank you.